Robyn Hitchcock is here, who has got a new album coming out on October 18th called Shufflemania. Robyn Hitchcock, this is a true honor. Thank you for being on What's Your Niche on CJSW.
Oh, thanks for having me on What's Your Niche? I will ponder my niche. What's your niche?
I have a wide variety of, but I guess that's the thing is I did a recent on yacht rock. I did a couple on yacht rock, which I know is kind of a thing, and I don't like. There's a lot of different ones for sure.
Hmm.
I did something about the Kmart tapes. I don't know if you know this, like tapes that were shipped to Kmart in the late '80s, early '90s, kind of like a Muzak versions of like soft rock songs
Oh, no. Yeah.
with kind of that fuzzy tape sound, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, that sounds like a very comforting niche.
Yeah, definitely with the yeah for sure. I've loved the two pre-release singles, by the way, for Shufflemania. You've had the Shuffle Man, and yeah, just I've loved them so much. And so you've called this kind of your proper pop album, a party record with a few solo moments, and the most consistent album you've made to date. Let's unpack some of those statements. So what is Shufflemania first?
Shufflemania, apart from the record itself, is, I suppose, a condition of constant rearrangement. That it's almost like a room where the furniture is rearranged every day. It's a world where nothing is allowed to come to rest. It's, I suppose, all the restlessness of the atom and all the anxiety of the molecule, but happening at normal speed, happening at not not necessar- not necessarily not necessarily accelerated, but it feels like it, I suppose, really. And it's also the Shuffle Man himself is the imp of change. That he is, he or should probably say they are, because the Shuffle Man isn't necessarily gender specific, but the Shuffle Man probably manifests as a male looking character in the old sense of the word, with a top hat and tails and a quite a long sly face. And the Shuffle Man is, he throws the cards up in the air and you catch what you can and you make what you can of it, really. I suppose the Shuffle Man would be, if you're a fairly well established band with a good budget, and you decide you can hire Brian Eno to come in for a week and do party tricks or kind of make magic passes over your Pro Tools or whatever it is that is going to make your music sound better, more edible, more tasty, or something. I think you'd probably just send for the Shuffle Man in just to kind of blow the whole thing apart.
Yeah.
The Shuffle Man is kind of much more heavy-handed, but he's also quick. So I kind of have a lot of respect for the Shuffle Man. There's nothing ponderous about the Shuffle Man. The Shuffle Man is probably what you'd like to summon up if you'd had a 2-hour meeting with an accountant or a lawyer.
I
You know,
agree. Yeah, that'd be
or,
amazing.
so I wouldn't say I've invented the Shuffle Man. I've probably just discovered him, or personalized him. So that's what Shufflemania. I suppose Shufflemania is an extension of that. Really, it's very snappy.
Yeah, from the songs, absolutely. I agree. And you've mentioned that you've recorded this album in multiple locations around the world. Can you describe like some of the places you've been recording the album?
Well, it was actually all recorded at home in Nashville. The basic recordings were made. I made them at home on like a 4.5 track machine, so it would have two vocals and two guitars, and then I sent the stems out to various people who were also at home, or in their home studios or whatever, But they were all, everybody was free because everybody was kind of grounded.
That's right. Yeah.
And they didn't have much to do except go out to their studios all day. So I sent them off. I sent the stems off to Brendan Benson, who was just
Yes.
up the road in Nashville.
Amazing.
Brendan is the band on the Shuffleman. He's playing drums, bass,
Love
guitar,
him.
harmonies. He's doing everything really. He produced my previous album, but he didn't play on it. And this time he's kind of it's the other side of it. He didn't mix this, or we didn't discuss anything. I just sent him the track and he sent me back what he'd done. And it sounded so good I sent him another one. And he's on another song called the Sir Tommy Shovel, which you will hear eventually. And then they went off to other people. I sent one of them off to Kimberly Rue, who was in the Soft Boys, and I sent a song off to Johnny Marr from Johnny Marr fame, and he plays. He sent it back to me. He put drums and bass and piano and acoustic guitar, and he plays almost everything on that track. Um, so that's called The Inner Life of Scorpio, and that is track two. And then boy, the Brendan, and then there was Sean Lennon. I sent him the last track called One Day, and he sent it back with drums and sort of tropical effects and vocoder and some bass and a lot of sort of just general sounds and then that came back, and then I had to change the guitar, so then it went to somebody else, and then so what Sean was playing to actually has completely been erased. There's no trace of what he played drums to, but everyone else is playing to him instead. So he has become a de facto click track. But he's a great drummer. I had a jam with him a few years ago, and I just thought, oh, this guy would be fantastic on drums. So I was very lucky to get him, and but gosh, there's quite a few drummers on that record. Eric Eric Slick from Doctor Dog.
Oh, I love him. Love him.
He's great, isn't he? I got well. I mean, Emma found him actually. Emma's worked with him before, so he underdubbed. I did one recording in the studio, which was Abbey Road. Emma and I went into Abbey Road last between lockdowns in 2020, and we did this song called Socrates in Thin Air. So Socrates was done there. I'm not sure. Then that went to Eric in Texas, and then it went to Kimberly Rue in Cambridge, and then it went back to Charlie Francis in Cardiff. Everything wound up with Charlie. He mixed it all. So Charlie also plays bass and keyboard. So it was really interesting. I've never made a record before. I've never been in. I didn't set foot in a recording studio apart from Abbey Road for the whole thing, and I wasn't there for the mixing or anything. I just it would all come down on the phone, and I'd plug it in and listen to it. So it's a weird thing because the isolation compelled the collaboration. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have thought to send things off to people. I'd have just got whoever I could in the studio. But it showed you, when you hear the whole album, it sounds as if it was done with a band, kind of quite deliberately.
Yeah,
Actually, the whole thing is overdubbed. You
that's
know,
incredible.
um,
And like that's the benefit of like all these home recording stuff. Because I know the album you did with Andy Partridge, Plan England. I think you said that you recorded that in like Andy Partridge's shed, as I recall.
yes, we did.
Which yeah, just benefit of like these modern times.
Well, it is. I mean, yes, it was. Andy has all these sampled drums. So, I mean, Andy is, apart from anything else, a brilliant engineer and producer and arranger. So, he likes to put what he calls bells and whistles on things. Andy likes to sort of flesh everything fully out. But he does makes it sound terrific.
And another producer you've worked with in the past, who I'm a big fan of, is Jon Brion on
Oh
Jules
yeah.
for Sophia. And I was listening to the album recently. I mean, it was a couple of days, and like I was listening to the Cheese Alarm, like the drum sounds on that. Like, what is happening? This is wild.
Oh, I'll tell you what happened with the Cheese Alarm. He recorded the drums at half speed. So when we played it back, it's double speed. So it sort of sounds like almost like a typewriter. We also got somebody to play tablas along to the track, I think, and he had trouble doing it, but he did do it. So there's some real speed tablas and there's John's half speed drums sped up, and then you've got me with my acoustic. Yeah.
That's and not to keep because because I haven't heard the full new album yet, but because I was listening to Jules for Sophia, and the song Via Ciel Tacoma, and like I love that was they got the best computers, coffee, and smack. I was enjoying that song. But what are your because I go to the Pacific Northwest for the summertime, and I have a lot of fond memories of the Pacific Northwest. What are your feelings towards, and what was the inspiration for that song?
Oh, well, I mean, it's quite historic now, isn't it? It's 25 years old, and that was already like 5 years after the sort of grunge eruption. More really. It was like, when was that? 1991 that Nirvana broke out. So that was just a nod, but it was those were the things that it was best known for. It was best known for coffee and high tech and grunge people who took heroin. So it was all there.
All the groovers came up from Vancouver, as you also say, which I love that line.
Well, they did, or they came down, but I think isn't there a Vancouver in, I don't know. Yeah. You're in Calgary though, right?
Correct. Which is Alberta, which is very close to Vancouver in British Columbia, which right beside it, the province.
Right, but you're still quite a ways, aren't you? I mean, you're.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like California side, really.
Right. So you're kind of, and you're still on. Are you on mountain time?
Yeah, which is like Colorado for the U.S. and stuff.
Right. So you're just getting to the end of summer. It's starting to get cold.
Yeah, it's actually been very weirdly warm not to jinx it, and it's going to start getting bad because weather in Calgary is unpredictable to get out. But it's actually quite nice today. Again, not to jinx it, but yeah.
Oh well. I mean, we're only early September, so I'm guessing. But I know you're kind of north in the north, and it always sort of snows up there and things still, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like intense. Yeah, definitely.
And but I don't know. I mean, I've played the folk festival a couple of times. I hope I get back there.
Yeah, amazing. We love the folk festival here.
Well, yeah, no, it's.
I just saw Spoon there this year, and they were incredible.
Oh, really? Yeah. So was the whole thing up, and how was the whole pandemic?
It's going good. This was because it was off for a couple of years, but this was the first kind of proper folk festival since that time.
Yeah.
And we had Spoon. Oh boy, Courtney Barnett was supposed to come here, but there was like some flight delays, sadly. But it was a great lineup, and I saw Spoon though, and they.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Britt Daniel. God, we were there. Oh God, it was 7 years ago now, actually. Nearly. Yes. Where are we? No. Cal. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Lovely. Oh, are we on a podcast or are you on a radio?
Oh, this is pre-record. This will be pre-recorded, but it will be on the radio because my show airs overnights at 2 to 4 in the morning, prime time.
Okay, great. That's good. But it's.
It will be a podcast though, for sure.
Oh, it will be as well. Okay. All right.
To listen on demand and all that stuff, but on the radio, yeah. Talking about niches, I know we share a mutual favorite in Bob Dylan, who's.
Oh yes. Well.
So like, not to nerd out, but I'm very excited. Huge fan. And so, and you have done some amazing covers of his. One cover of his song that I like, and it's a kind of a deep cut, and it shows you what a fan you are. is you do a great cover of Dignity, which I know is from like the Old Mercy sessions, and you do a great cover of Dignity, and I just want to. It's amazing.
Oh, I did. I don't think I've done it live because I can't. I don't have a grasp of all the words. But you're right. I have done it. What was that on? Was that? Or,
Um, I'm blanking on what it might have been like an full like I'm not sure, but I've definitely there was like a studio version I heard.
um, no, no. I mean, not mine, but of
Oh,
Dylan's.
oh,
Uh,
like it was recorded for the Oh Mercy sessions, but it didn't make an album. It's like one of those things like he's
yeah,
recorded like some of the songs that didn't make the album are better than most people's like best songs. It's like
yeah,
and so but I know my favorite version by Bob was on MTV Unplugged, his MTV Unplugged album. That was a good version, but
yes.
there's because that was the Daniel Lanois sessions, so like they did a lot of different versions of Dignity.
Oh, um, that figures. I mean, it's just a. It has got some really good. Well, or saying a song's got some really good lines in it. It's also a bit like saying it's a Bob Dylan song. I mean, they all they kind of he sort of sets it up so there's usually one quotable line for each verse.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I think Dylan. I don't know. What do you think of Rough and Rowdy Ways?
I adore it. I love it, and just is one like because not this. I definitely prefer like the later era. Honestly, the albums I go back to are like '80s and past, and I just not to again the '60s stuff incredible. Like it's all incredible, but like I feel like in like the 2000 like I mean of course Time of the Mind and late '90s, but then from Love and Theft, Modern Times, Together Through Life's got some real gems on it, and I even like the Sinatra stuff, like Triplicate, like his adaptation, like these old kind of stodgy songs, and his interpretation and his singing on it is just incredible. Which, just yeah, but
Yeah, I haven't listened to that. I mean,
because you
I
hear
don't
how
know.
sad a lot of those old songs are. Like there's a song like
Yeah.
just killer.
Well, that's always his. I mean, I think in a way that's maybe his strongest gift is his sadness. There's something really sad at the core of Dylan, which means there's an inevitable truth there right at the heart of him. You can't, whatever's going on in the world, Dylan seems relevant, really. Um, Whenever things get towards the apocalyptic, his work still stands. It just feels true, without feeling that it's even something you're escaping into. You're just there in the knowledge that he knows that all this is coming to pass. And in a way, that's been in his DNA since the very beginning. All those songs about death on his first record and blowing in the wind and hard rain's gonna fall and talking World War III blues on the freewheeling and he got less message specific after a while, but it's always I feel like that's always been at the heart of his singing, whether it's something like that or whether it's something like Dignity or Born in Time, which that's
Oh, I
another.
love that one from Under the Red Sky, I believe.
Is it? Yeah, I think the one I know is probably from the same session as the where I heard Dignity, so it might be a
Yeah,
Lenoir outtake.
yeah.
And there's sort of just that sense of loss, and
Hmm.
Dylan somehow, like he says in um, trying to get to heaven before they close the door, when you think you've lost everything, you find out you can lose a little more, and somehow Dylan kind of just seems to shed so much as he goes through life. There's always something else to lose. He may be a frillionaire and the most adored and venerated artist in the history of popular culture and the greatest musical artist living today. But part of his job is to be kind of deeply, deeply sad and to acknowledge the utter woefulness of the human condition. He does really, I think.
Yeah, one that comes to mind for sure is standing in the doorway, where in the chorus he's talking about, I'm standing in the doorway crying. Like one of the Dylan songs I can think of that he's talking about how he's crying, or at least it's just that song knocks me out. Just I think that's from Time Out of Mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're also the second person I've spoken to this week of of a younger generation than mine, who said, oh, actually, what I like Dylan. I go to the recent stuff, from the '90s onwards or something. Whereas, for me, I was part of that generation that felt like he sort of peaked with Blonde on Blonde and
Of course.
never recovered from a motorbike crash. But I think he did. I think he just was somebody different because Dylan's evolved by being a series of different people. Probably maybe about 20 or 30 years ago, they began to integrate, and there's not such a huge jump between one Bob and the other now. But
Yeah. And I'm dying to see his tour he's been doing, because the amazing thing again for someone like of his longevity is I believe he's playing the entire Rough and Rowdy Ways album, with the exception of Murder Most Foul, of course. But he's playing the entire album, which for like that's unheard of for like an artist who started in the '60s, and just
yeah,
and it's the same set list too, pretty much, which is also new for him because he also always shuffled the set lists.
I wonder if he's playing them in the same order.
I believe so.
I don't know. Actually, Emma saw him in Portland a few months ago and said he was fantastic. So, but that's another really interesting thing about him. Any other artist from that era, i.e., the Rolling Stones or Paul McCartney or Brian Wilson or The Who, anyone from that time is basically tethered to playing songs from that time and kind of in those arrangements. Go and see Paul McCartney because he's actually going to be a pretty close version of Mr. Kite from Sergeant Pepper, or Back in the USSR, or Hey Jude. It's going to sound as close as they can get it to the Beatles. Whereas if you see Dylan, actually, if he plays any old songs, you're not going to recognize them because
Very, very true.
because the paint doesn't dry on his old songs. It just runs, and everything remains very fluid with him. So the best performances Dylan will give is of songs from his last 15, 20 years. Even the Time Out of Mind songs have begun to shift. Arrangements have drifted. So it's really good that he's playing his new album, and that's what you go to see. Dylan's moving with time, where all those other artists, even somebody like me at my level, is basically hauling you back to a specific era. This is what you heard when you were 17, or
Like nostalgia.
This is what your grandma heard when she was 17, or it's let's go, it's a vacation in the past, and people want vacations in the past desperately. It's the only place that's safe to go. But Dylan, bless him, actually makes no concession to that. There's a tremendous courage in Dylan, the way he just sort of stares unflinchingly at what, the grim face that's looking at him. He looks the skull in the eyes.
For sure. And someone who I equate to Dylan, who's always pushing and stuff, someone I know you're also a fan of and are friendly with, is John Cale. And like that's a guy who's always pushing. And like the arrangements of songs, like I love that in the '80s he had a version of "Waiting for the Man," and it's just like haunting and scary. And which I
Oh,
know Lou wrote that, but still, it was incredible.
yeah. No, I don't know him personally. I've seen him a few times, but he's yeah, he's always quite forceful and intense. It's just been harder for him to develop any really obvious style that people latch onto. There's sort of he's always dogged by the Velvet Underground and the fact that Lou Reed wrote those songs, even if Cale had a big part in how they sounded. And he was also a producer for a long time. He did
Oh
the
yeah,
Patti
modern.
Smith record and in Modern Lovers, and he did early sessions by people like the Police, and he Nico, and he even worked with Mike Heron from the Incredible String Band. He had a very something slightly amorphous about Cale, but it's always very intense. But then he was also the first guy to really play. He covered, Hallelujah, that Leonard
Oh,
anthem, and I think he was the first person I saw doing that. He sort of so he does do the odd cover, and he's
his Heartbreak Hotel cover is incredible.
yes. Well, we used to do that in the Soft Boys. That was
Yes.
our closing number. That was that that would get all the metalheads from the fence.
And speaking of soft boys, again, Underwater Moonlight, truly one of my all-time favorite albums. And like, my gateway was I Want to Destroy You. Maybe it was more angry. I'm like, this is great, and I still love it now. But the song that I really like just hits me now is Queen of Eyes. Like that's I'm beautiful. I love that song. So
Thank you, thank you. Well, it's very short. It's under 2 minutes, and so there's no flab on it. And I went into a coffee house actually in Nashville a couple of years ago, and it was that was playing, and I thought, oh God, what is this? Is the Beatles, isn't it? And then I thought, oh no, it's me, it's the Soft Boys. But it just sort of sounded like a Beatle track in the distance. It's a good. It condenses down, and it's got one quite odd chord that I sort of invented, and it crops up in a few places, but I think it gives it a in a way it's quite a predictable tune, but it's got a couple of little bits that aren't predictable. And I've taught so many people how to play that song, and they're always surprised by those chords. So, but I'm glad you like it. I mean, that one's been around so long, I can't even remember not having written it.
oh yeah, again, just like it's really like again, it's so short and like again, no flab. But I feel like every time I listen to it, I still like discover new things. Like just, oh, this new bit's hitting me now. Like it's just,
Oh wow!
I really truly love it, and just I love your work as well, of course. And you know, I know we're running short on time here, is so, but we mentioned like Bob and like John Cale, Lou Reed, and so for like, and again to tie to my show, what's your niche? What are some of your personal? You've listed some. What are some of your personal favorite albums and songs by those artists?
By those artists or other people in their niches.
Or sure, either or. Honestly, I know
Oh,
that's very general, but
well, I mean, Dylan's in a bigger niche than, say, somebody like Captain Beefheart. You
oh
ever
yeah,
heard of Captain Beefheart? There's the accessible stuff like Clear Spot and Safe as Milk, and then there's the
yeah. Is that song
very
"Zigzag Wanderer"? I think
Big
I love
Bang
that.
Wanderer. That's on Safe as Milk.
Yeah,
But he kind of, again, he had a couple of settings. There was basically kind of there was accessible Beefheart, and there was inaccessible Beefheart.
yeah,
Inaccessible stuff is in such a kind of thicket of dissonant guitars and sometimes sort of ghastly freak out saxophone that you really have to kind of pick your way through it. Um, it's very Beefheart's very much kind of little boys music, a bit like Zappa. It doesn't appeal to women much. And yet he has written some very romantic songs like My Head Is My Only House Unless It Rains or Too Much Time. And he's got a side of him that would be quite romantic. And then he's got another side which is sort of not so much psychedelic blues as kind of blues that has been smashed to pieces and then glued together again. But as a man with words, under your furry crawling brow, a silver bowl rings up in inches. You were afraid you'd be the devil's red wife. I was 16 when I heard that, and I just thought, yes, of course. I'd go around saying to everybody, everything in the world is either bulbous or tubular. It's no wonder I didn't get any girlfriends for a few. Um, I just, I just love that, and he's pretty nichey.
Oh yeah.
And another great niche was Sid Barrett, the guy who
Oh
started
yeah.
Floyd.
Love him.
Um, he was, one of my absolute, along with Bob Dylan, one of my sort of prime influences, really, kind of because he was also terrific with words, but super English. So where people like Dylan and Beefheart were very American, and there'd be all this stuff about no dos and spider your wrist round my honey, and
Yeah.
you know, I just lots of things we didn't quite get. Barrett was extremely sort of middle class British doctor's son growing up in the sort of suburbs of Cambridge or so. But he again had a terrific way with words. And oh, good lord, our little doggo is coming back. Hang on a second. Um, hang on. Wait a sec, Ben. I've just got to.
Sure.
Don't go away. Hang on. Ems, Daffs is back. Oh, hang on. Wait a sec. You got it. Okay. Okay. Sorry. You may you may or may not want to have this bit in the. Okay, no, this is just like the dog coming back from the dog sitter. But yeah, so um, oh God, just I can't. There's so many great Sid lines I can't even think of them. But he was another Barrett and Don Van Vliet with Captain Beefheart's alias. They were both visual artists. They both carried on painting long after they stopped doing music, and they both trained, I think, as visual artists. And that's my other kind of side hustle is drawing and painting. I was doing that before I could play the guitar or anything. So I think I really like visual
Yeah.
artists. Bowie and Paul McCartney and all of them all painted and drew and God knows.
Absolutely.
You probably find Keith Richard is an excellent watercolorist or something. I don't know. Maybe Mick Jagger is a great cartoonist, but I think the two things go together. Joni Mitchell's a visual artist.
Yes.
Bob Dylan himself has done
Yeah. Paintings.
a lot of actually pretty good paintings, much better than those album covers he did years ago.
True. That's
It-
true.
it- if they're actually done by Dylan, he's pretty accomplished. So I feel like the music part of the music room and the art room are pretty not next door to each other in the brain, and there's a door between the two that regularly opens. And you know, s- I started out by just drawing and listening to all those records, the Dylan and the Beatles and Captain Beefheart and everybody. Just before I could play, I just sat there kind of drawing to them, and I still, when I draw, I still listen to music. So, anyway, that's my niche.
Those are some great niche. And honestly, like I knew Zigzag Wanderer. I love that. So I think I heard it on a Nuggets compilation. But I need to like fully get into them. Like that's it take me a bit. And you mentioned Zappa. That's another kind of hurdle for me. Like
Yeah, I'm more Beefheart than Zappa. I find. Zappa's a bit sort of cerebral and a bit smutty.
Hard to get into for me.
Um, he's also terribly technically good, so he kind of, he he appeals to technique nerds.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not that there's anything wrong with one of them, but I'm not a technique nerd at all. Beefheart's guitarists were more kind of primitive. They were kind of bullied into shape by Beefheart himself. I'm sure Zappa was a much nicer man than Beefheart,
Right.
but they, I don't know, they're all they're all exciting. Sorry, this is a digression. You were saying, yeah, you want to listen to those,
Yeah, I'm
definitely.
definitely want to get into, and after from listening to this, I'll definitely get more into Beefheart for sure. So, Robyn Hitchcock, this was an honor. Thank you so much for your time. Shufflemania is out October 18th on Tiny Ghost Records. Everyone check it out. I'm very excited to hear the whole thing. So thank you so much for your time, Robyn. Sincerely.
Oh, okay, yeah. Um, yes, thank you very much. Sorry, mad people texting me from the beyond. Okay, that sounds great. I will see you in Calgary. I hope before too long.
I would love that.
I hope the winter behaves, and we'll be there come the summer with the mosquitoes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robyn. Again, Shufflemania, October 18th. Everyone, please check it out.
Fab. All right. See you later, Ben.
Take care.
Thank you, and you.